to present such a special place halfway across the world. It'll probably take me some time to process just how remarkable it is to be able to share this remarkable place with this remarkable group. About myself, I've been in Burma since about 2007. The last 2 years, I've spent intensively researching about the sites in our tradition and other places in Burma, and writing a book, the first part of which was published last month by Pariyati. It's available for free download, so you're welcome to look at it anytime in the future. The information that you'll be seeing today, some of the information yesterday, was based on drafts of some of the chapters that have not been published yet. So you're getting a little bit of a sneak preview. So to let you know at first, the information that I'm sharing, I also have a blog, Burma Dhamma blogspot. You don't have to write that down. You can just remember the words Burma and Dhamma, which in this audience should probably not be too difficult. If you search Burma Dhamma on any Google, the blog will come up. So if you're interested in getting more information, there's various posts there about some of these sites. So the first question to ask is, what is the significance of a place? We know with meditation, it's an inner journey, and wherever you are, you're in silence and you're inside yourself. So what difference does it really make what external place you're in? Of course, I'm going to be spending the next hour talking about one very specific place, Webu Monastery in Ingynbin. And it's my belief that when you go to a place and when you know the history of what happened there, and you know the person who lived there, you're able to connect with it at a deeper level. You're able to understand this is not just a story, this is a real person, this is a real place, real things happened here, these kinds of things happened, and this is where they happened. And especially a place like Ingynbin, which is so special. And actually, I should ask, how many people in this room, by show of hands, have been to Ingynbin? Yeah, okay, so a little less than a dozen. So especially a place like Ingynbin, where such important events happened, and as a meditator, to go there and to know those stories, you can still very much feel the importance and the significance. So one of the things that we'll be talking about is the significance of this place, of the things that happened, of where they happened, and what happened. It'll be a virtual tour that we're taking to Ingynbin, and as we go on this tour, one of the ways I've tried to design it is to really give the tour from a Burmese perspective. So a lot of times when we understand things today, we understand them present day and where we are and what centers we're practicing at. And in my time in Burma, I've really endeavored to understand the time and the place in its own context. So we'll be taking a tour of Ingynbin in, say, the 1940s or 50s and trying to look at it through those lenses. And we have to remember who was Webu Sayadaw, which, after yesterday's wonderful talk, hopefully that's still fresh in our minds. Of course, Webu Sayadaw was one of the great 20th century Pati monks in Burma. Extremely revered to an extent that it's probably difficult in any of our countries to come up with even any vague comparison to the extent with which he was revered. The only possible idea we can understand is by watching some of those old archival footage of him, the rare trips he took in Yangon, and the kind of adoration that he had. In Burma, Pati monks are revered in a very special way. There's many kinds of monks and they specialize in different things, but the Pati monks are adored, are revered, are cherished in a way that's very difficult to understand. And anecdotally, at least, in my experience in Burma, I found that Webu Sayadaw, along with Sunlun Sayadaw, who's pictured next to him, as far as 20th century Pati monks go, I know a few that are more revered than these two, and Webu Sayadaw probably at the foremost. They were actually friends. Both were, Sunlun was also known to be an arhat, and they met several times, and they actually, along with Nyawnlon Sayadaw, who was also an arhat, they sponsored an ordination hall in Shwebo. Chausey it was, in Webu Monastery in Chausey. It's known as the Arhat Sema Hall, a very special place to have 3 arhats be able to do the ceremony. Of course, we also know Webu Sayadaw because, as we learned yesterday, he made the unprecedented move of encouraging a layperson, authorizing a layperson to be able to teach the Dhamma, along with Lady Sayadaw authoring Sayataji, going back to the time of the Buddha. I don't know if you could find other precedents for this to happen, which has affected all of us to this day. These two lay people having the backing of the most important and respected and revered monks of their time, allowed them to behave in ways and to carry the Dhamma at that time that probably wouldn't have been possible without that strong backing. Of course, U Ba Khin ordained at Ingynbin in 1965, the only time he ordained in his life, with Ukole. And then, as you saw the picture yesterday, went to IMC and visited and went several times. He was a recluse and very rarely even left his hut. And he would go to Yangon every year or every other year to support the growing IMC. So what was the role of Ingynbin in the life of Webu Sayadaw? And if you recall from the talk yesterday, this is a picture of his father. He was born in Ingynbin, he was ordained in Ingynbin, he studied in Ingynbin, and then he left. And he, like a lot of us in our own countries, we left to see the world and to see our hometown in our rearview mirror. As we know, he came back when his father made a special request to be able to visit his aunt, who was then very sick, and went only when his father agreed to ordain as a monk. And when his father agreed to ordain as a monk, he went back to Ingynbin that one time, and then he would spend anywhere from 4 to 6 months every year for the rest of his life in his native village. And that's what we'll be talking about the rest of the talk. So we'll be joining a virtual tour. I say virtual because this was a tour I led a couple years ago. And so you'll also have to suffer through a few photos of me on our tour, because a lot of the photos that we're using on this talk were taken by pilgrims from the pilgrimage that happened a couple of years ago. So we'll be joining with them virtually. And to start our tour, welcome to Ingynbin Village. This is your introduction to the very small village of Ingynbin. As we drive into Ingynbin, this is some of the sights that you see from the bus as we pull into the village. To your right or your left, I don't remember which side, you'll see long canals. These canals were dug in the 18th century, connecting the area to the Mu River in Shwebo and irrigating the land. This is interesting because around this time, in the 18th century, one of the finance ministers of the Burmese king, came and built an ordination hall in the little town of Ingynbin. This ordination hall that was built with the dana from the finance minister was where a very young Webu Sayadaw was first ordained as a novice. And Umandala's monastery to this day in Ingynbin still has the paper receipt, or whatever they called it, that attested to this dana being given. So we see some of the historical significance early on. Some more of the rural sites as we pass by. This is the site just across from the Patipati Monastery. And as you can see, Ingynbin affords a nice stroll as the sun sets, with some dandelions and a little stream after your evening sitting. I have some quotes intermixed here from some of the pilgrims that came last year. One American meditator says, "Ingynbin is very special. To be able to walk where Webu Sayadaw lived, taught, and passed, and to sit in a place permeated with his vibrations, so very, very special." In Ingynbin, they live off the land, so a lot of what people are eating, what they're doing, where they're living, their livelihoods are off the land. So this is another very common scene. And from here, you get wonderful rice that is then donated to the monks on the alms rounds or at the monastery. A lot of the land many years ago was also known as Tagontain, which meant by royal decree it was land. All of the crops there would go as dana to the monasteries. This was some of the land around Ingynbin Monastery. This was later overturned in the socialist post-war era when the socialists took power. But for a time, this was all mandated to be the crops going for dana. This is a common sight you see in Ingynbin. This is the local mode of transportation. This is how dana is given. This is how the local villagers will come to the local monastery to give their dana. And of course, to local people in Ingynbin, they always think it's very funny when we take pictures of this. It might be like them coming here and taking pictures of our automobiles. But we have lots of pictures of oxen and carts, because the foreign meditators going there just love this part. This right here might be my very favorite all-time picture in Burma. It just represents everything that I like about Burma. That was taken by a professional photographer, a meditator who came to Ingynbin. This is another iconic picture, and it's so iconic that for the book that we're making with Pariyati, we turned it into art. So Ingynbin just seems to summarize some of the iconic Dhammic landscape. So also some of our volunteers for the project, our meditator artists, made another picture of oxen, countryside, and monk. Some of the faces of Ingynbin as you walk through town. Mandala probably knows most of these people that we're seeing. Some of the children. There's one home in Ingynbin that makes their own Ingynbin style lungjis for women. So if you find yourself in Ingynbin, there's probably few gifts to local meditators better than a local made Ingynbin lungji. So an important place in town is Ingynbin Pagoda. This is the spot where Webu Sayadaw was cremated. And you can go and visit, and there's a little sitting space, so you can meditate on this site during your visit. Another important site is Shwe Chet Tho Pagoda, and this is actually the very site where Webu Sayadaw was born. And there's a tradition in Burma of the great kings, the great people, the great monks, that to honor their life, the umbilical cord is put in some kind of container and buried in the ground, and a pagoda built on top of it, and or some kind of landmark, obviously a pagoda for a monk. When Sayagyi Ubaken in 1965 was a monk in Ingynbin, he heard that Webu Sayadaw had this volition that he would like a pagoda built in his place, honoring his birth here. And so in the middle of the, Ukole relates the story, in the middle of the night, without telling anyone, Sayagyi Ubaken snuck away from the monastery, went to the site where the pagoda was yet to be built, and meditated there to give it good vibrations, and then later collected all the dana and contributed all the dana to be able to build this pagoda honoring Webu Sayadaw. Here's another view of the pagoda, and you see a lone pilgrim on the left side meditating before it. There's also many stone tablets written in the words of Webu Sayadaw that you find at this pagoda from his discourses. This is really exciting for me. I'm a maybe intermediate Burmese speaker, and it really gives me confidence to my Burmese ability when I go here, because I can read a lot of this, and I think that attests to what you heard yesterday about the incredible simplicity of how Webu Sayadaw would explain the Dhamma. He would explain it in such a way that even poor villagers, illiterate villagers, and poor and foreign Burmese speakers who don't read or speak very well are able to understand his words because they're so simple. He expresses profound ideas in such a simple way. It's another view of the pagoda. And then next to it we have a guest house. This is a detail from the guest house. It's interesting because you see this is the dana tablet. This is who gave the dana, and this is one of the rare instances when you see a couple of English names. You might know these people. These are meditators from the US and from Canada that gave dana many years ago to a rest house next to the pagoda. So it's another reminder of these. As I'm talking, one of the themes is these interconnections, the flow of history. And so another reminder of these interconnections of meditators in this tradition that have gone and supported the memory of Webu Sayadaw. We talk a little about Webu Sayadaw's alms rounds. This was a photograph of a piece of paper that Mandala might have been the one that wrote it for me many years ago, and I wanted to remember it. Webu Sayadaw used to, when he first went back to Ingynbin, he didn't go on alms rounds. There was a practice that really serious monks who wanted to dedicate themselves to scriptures or to meditation could have leave from going on the daily alms rounds because they were focused on their task at hand. And Webu Sayadaw did this at first, but after he became very renowned and developed, he felt that he wanted to go on the alms rounds as a way to help the villagers gain merit by giving to him. So with his incredible generosity, what Webu Sayadaw would do is not go on just an alms round in Ingynbin, But there was Ingynbin, and there were 6 villages around Ingynbin, and every day of the week, he would go to a different village for his alms. So this was a diagram that I think it was Umandala that drew for me, showing a rough map of where these 7 villages are located, where Webu Sayadaw would go to one every day to collect his alms. There's something very special about the relationship between the lay people and the Sangha in Ingynbin. In all my years in Burma, I've never been to any place in Burma where the lay people and the Sangha are so close and have such a special, warm relationship. The reason for this, I like to think, is that Webu Sayadaw was a native son, and he reached, as we know, the highest stages of spiritual development. He could have gone anywhere. He could have done anything. As we know, he had heads of states of 2 different countries that were rolling out the royal carpet, literally, for him. And what does he do after reaching this stage? He decides to spend 4 to 6 months every year for the rest of his life in a little village that no one's heard of, and he stays there but during the hot season, during the hottest time of the year. This is Upper Burma, so much hotter. Could have gone to many other places in Burma where it wasn't this hot. And he teaches the Dhamma, he teaches this highest philosophy to the simple villagers that are there. And the people have not forgotten this. And when you go to Ingynbin village, it's something, to me, that's very palpable, that you see this memory of Webu, and when you see Sangha lay interactions, I find it's different than anywhere in the country I've ever been, and that's because of Webu, because the family still hold very dear that this was a decision that he made to stay in this village, and it's something that that still warms their heart. So this is a photograph of a foreign monk, a friend of mine from the Netherlands, and he went to Ingynbin and stayed there, and this is just, we were walking together to meditate together, and on the way, this woman passed us and insisted on going to her knees and formally bowing 3 times to him to pay respects to him as a member of the Sangha, and I just happened to pull a camera out and get the tail end of that. This is the monk that you saw the picture of, and talking to Umandala, he copied Webu Sayadaw's route. He went to the 7 villages on his alms round, and he commented about what that experience was like. He said it was amazing how the people from these villages were supporting, how much the people from these villages were supporting. Every house seemed to be making food offerings, and it was done in such a respectful way. The Dhamma that Webu Sayadaw had brought to this place was very much alive, and that there was this possibility to walk in his footsteps was greatly inspiring and motivating. In the end, 2 people from the village helped carrying all the food that was donated back to the monastery, where it was shared with the monks, novices, nuns, and guests. There's another picture from Uaga's alms round. All the village, Ingynbin's as you'd imagine, is a small village, so you don't keep many secrets there. So when he would go on his alms rounds, all the village children would gather together to await him and pay respects and offer rice. As we go into the monastery, this is a picture from back in the day, maybe in the 1950s, and we have to remember as we recreate this time of living there, this was an incredibly active monastery at its time. We're talking about 300 to 600 people on any given day that were meditating. The idea of a meditation center is relatively new, so there was no real roadmap for what he was doing. As we'll see with the center that he was creating, this environment where everyone, male, female, young, old, foreign, Burmese, monastic lay, everyone that was coming was able to meditate, and he was setting up this environment where they were really focused only on meditation. It's now somewhat past its time, but the remnants of the important things that happened are still there. So as you see the pictures that follow, to hold in your mind this vibrant place that once was, that this picture represents. So we start at the monastery. There's 2 sides, as you remember, and we start on the Pati side. It's also called the Kamatan Monastery. It's the Western Monastery, or it's called the New Webu Sayadaw. Burmese places often have a lot of names. People, pagodas, monasteries, they often have 3 or 4 names attached to it. So these are the many names of this monastery. The monastery is very large. It's a very large compound, and how how to spatially show what's on the grounds and the very important events. It's a monumental task. This is one attempt. This is an attempt by the monastery to try to make some kind of map of the grounds. Not a good attempt, but not all that helpful. There's only a few places that are marked, but it's a start. This is the next attempt. This is my attempt. I mapped out every building and the history on there just by jotting on a piece of paper, and then put it to a Word document to try to represent all these buildings. And then it went to the artists that are helping us on the project, and this is their first draft. So eventually where we would like to go is to have a complete full map of Ingynbin to show where everything is located spatially. The artist did an incredible job. He actually took the photos of the buildings and drew the icons of what those buildings look like and then put them spatially. So our hope is that by the time the book comes out, we'll have a complete map of the Patipati side with all the buildings drawn spatially, so any meditator who goes is able to self-direct their own pilgrimage and know what they're seeing and what its importance is. This is the current Sayadaw at the Patipati side. As you enter the monastery, this is the main gate. So this is what you would see as you walk up to the monastery. This is the principal gate. As you're getting closer to the gate and you're about to enter, and now you've entered and you're walking down to the straight line to the central pagoda. Before you reach the pagoda, there's I'm not sure the Burmese name for this. It's a place where you pay respects. So you enter this little hut before the pagoda, or this is what would happen back when it was an active monastery, and what we did with the pilgrims, and you would pay respects to the pagoda, and that would be your way of entering the monastery. As you're walking straight towards the pagoda, if you look to your left, you would see a line of trees that's kind of curved like a crescent, and this marked the female area. So this was, again, very interesting because Webu Sayadaw had no real roadmap that I know of for creating this meditation-only site. And so some of the things we see here are ways that he would set this compound up to be able to flourish in meditation practice. And one of those is that he had this row of trees planted where everything back behind those trees on the left side as you enter is all the female area. And one of those homes, one of the buildings, is where Clarissa Vandertramp, or Medawi, the American from San Francisco that you remember from yesterday, if you go there, the villagers will say, this is right where she lived. So the villagers remember all of who lived where and what happened. The central pagoda is called Tiloka Tapien Nu Pagoda. It was built in 1945, reconstructed 5 times. There were some earthquakes and some damage, but that's the central pagoda, very, very beautiful. Some pilgrims taking a break under the pagoda. A little bit of a Dhamma talk. Next to the pagoda is a museum building, and in this museum there's some artifacts that are very important to the life of Webu Sayadaw. This, I believe, was his casket when he passed away, and this was a palanquin that he was carried during special occasions. This is a painting, a very significant painting. Many of you might already know the story. Webu Sayadaw had made a prophecy that one day foreigners from all over the world would come and pay respects to Ingynbin, it being the site where he's from and him having achieved this ultimate goal. He made this in the 1950s when it might be a little difficult for us to remember, put ourselves back there. Now the teachings of the Buddha, Eastern practices, Buddhism, these things are so popular in so many countries. In the 1950s, this was far from the case. So this was quite an incredible prophecy, quite an incredible prediction. And Webu Sayadaw was not one to speak lightly. There's many instances of him speaking, saying things very clearly, and then events happening somehow in the future that were connected to his words. I'd always heard about this prophecy, and then this painting that you see painted the prophecy. A painter in the 1950s showed this crowd of Westerners in 3-piece suits and evening gowns and such, coming to Ingynbin, and I asked Umandala at one point about this prophecy. I thought, well, maybe he just said this once, or maybe it was misinterpreted, or, I asked him how when did he say this? How much did he say this? And Umandala said he said this a lot. This was news to me when I heard this. Umandala said that he said it on many occasions. He was very specific. He said double-decker buses are going to go into Ingynbin carrying the pilgrims. They're going to build hotels in the village because so many are going to come. I was stunned to hear this level of specificity. The one thing he did not specify was when this was going to happen, so we don't know if this is going to be happening in the next 10 years or in the next millennium. But he did predict this was going to happen. During our pilgrimage, we were the first large group that ever came, so we had a little bit of fun trying to act out that prophecy's painting. And now we move to the Dhamma Hall. These are photos of Webu Sayadaw preaching in his Dhamma Hall. He preached to 300 to 500 people. He'd give evening discourses every night. People would meditate there all hours of the day, encouraged to stay up at night. If you just hold this picture in your mind, I'm going to turn to the next one, which is a modern day look at this Dhamma Hall. So just hold this picture in your mind and you'll see how it looks today. Not much different. There's a long view of the Dhamma Hall that fits so many people. They also hold 10-day Vipassana courses in this tradition there. Not that many. I think they've held about 7 10-day courses. So if you ever get the chance to attend a 10-day course in Ingynbin, it'd be pretty special. There's another view of the Dhamma Hall, and if you notice the arrow, I'm going to go to a close-up of where that arrow is going in the far right corner. And that takes us to an underground entrance to cells, to meditation cells that are under the ground, which is where someone would practice. I haven't heard yet who got access there, how it was decided, but there are various kind of special cell, meditation cell places around Ingynbin that, being there long enough, I got shown some of them. Another thing I want to point out is just the detail. Ingynbin now is in somewhat of a state of disrepair, but we have to remember this was a place where despite this small village, the presence of Webu Sayadaw had inspired a nation, and he had the cream of the crop of Burmese society and people from other countries as well coming to see him, and lots of dana being given to support his mission. So in some of these pictures, you see the detail, the exquisiteness of some of these buildings that just remind us how special this place was in its time and how much care people put into the presentation and the look of this great meditation center, this great atmosphere of Dhamma, down to the very details of the pillars and the detail of the roofs and such, the ceilings. Fortunately now there is some. It was in disrepair for a while, but the last few visits they've been doing some maintenance, so it's very good to see a fresh coat of paint on some of these places. A view of one of the gates. And this, of course, is the meditation hut of Webu Sayadaw. This is where, as you remember yesterday, when the young boy asked him if he'd attained enlightenment, he didn't answer the question. And then he asked the father to build the lake, the little pond, which he called the Lake of Victory, that was across from the meditation hut. This was where he spent a lot of his time in meditation. Fits about 4 to 6 people. And you can't see from this picture, but on the other walls, other sides, the windows open out so you can get some ventilation. Picture of a couple meditators inside. And another picture of it to the big yellow building next to it is called the Sanjaun building. This was where you also heard yesterday Webu Sayadaw resided here. He might meet visitors here. He would meditate here. This is where he spent a lot of his time, and we'll be going inside after a few slides to see what that looks like. This is a photo of the meditation hut and the Lake of Victory behind him. So you see the red arrow pointing to the concrete wall, and that concrete wall is the entrance to the Lake of Victory. So you can see their proximity. And this is the Lake of Victory. This is it's a pond, really. It's a statue of Webu Sayadaw in the middle of the lake in meditative posture. And below is another picture of the meditation hut. A close-up of the statue of Webu Sayadaw. This is a fountain that's somewhat of a play on words. I'll probably get the pronunciation wrong. Kayakan Vazikan, Manokan. Kan in Burmese means karma as well as fountain. So it's the three words represent the physical, mental, and vocal actions. So it's there's all kinds of little things that have this significant meaning. When I first would go to Ingynbin, I had no idea all these meanings, these places, these importance. And as I stayed there longer, and people would point things out, this was said to be a fountain in Webu Sayadaw's day that would remind meditators about the importance of these three kinds of actions. This is a very important place. This is the Sema Hall, where Sayagyi Ubaken and Ukole were ordained in 1965. There are two Sema Halls. This is the older Sema Hall. You could see it's open air. Of course, all these sites you can meditate in too. So if you go to Ingynbin, you can choose if you want to meditate in the hut where you reached enlightenment, or the place where Sayagyi Ubaken was ordained, or the place where Webu Sayadaw was cremated. So there's many places to reflect upon the Dhamma while you're there. And the entrance to the Old Sea Mahal. This is inside the Sanjaun building. You remember that Sanjaun was where he would reside. This is the one building on the campus that's actually usually locked. So when we were on our pilgrimage, we had to get special permission to go in here, and we actually held a one-day course inside. A very, very strong place to sit. So if you do go, I recommend trying to meditate in this building. This is a close-up of one of the Webu Sayadaw statues. There's statues and photographs and paintings. This is the new Sema Hall. As I said, there's an old Sema Hall and a new Sema Hall. The old one was where Ubaken was ordained. This new one was built sometime after 1965, obviously. Again, just to appreciate the detail, to remember the importance of the site back in its time. You can, even though the paint is peeling, you can see the level of attention to every nook and cranny of this place. This is inside the new Sema Hall, and this is a very unusual cell, a meditation cell inside the ordination hall that you kind of have to climb into and then go down, and then you meditate kind of below where the ground is. I've never really seen a cell like it. And this is very interesting. When they explained to me when ordinations would happen here, Webu Sayadaw would come up to the upper level of this ordination hall, and all the monks would come up with him, not the lay people. The lay people would be all down below on the floor of the Sema Hall, and the ordinations would take place. So you can imagine hundreds of lay people down below with joy watching the ordination happen, and the ordination taking place on this platform where only the monks were allowed. That's the red arrow shows where the new Sema Hall is that we were just looking at. Next to it is this tree, another meditation spot for one pilgrim. This is where our group stayed. This is where we slept when we were there, and I just want to point this building out. I believe this was the Pagoda building. I could have the name wrong, but what's interesting is when you go on the Patipati campus, you see like the Pagoda building, the Mandalay building, the Mogok building, the Yangon building, and what this meant was that the donors in this region of Myanmar were coming together and giving dana to be able to build one building. And then when people from that region would come, they would often stay there. It wasn't exclusive, but it was something kind of special or pride the people from that region would be very proud about, that we're from Pagoda, and this is the Pagoda Hall at Webu Sayadaw campus, and this is where our community goes to support Webu. It's just another indication of just how revered this monk was at his time. You can think about if you're in Australia and you had a monk who people thought reached the stage of an arhat, and he had a big meditation campus, and you had the Sydney building, and you had the Melbourne building, and you had the buildings from the Tasmania building from these different regions, and they represented the communities from those cities coming together to be able to build these huge buildings that then pilgrims, as they went from Sydney or Melbourne or these other places, would go and stay there. So all over the Webu, the Patipati campus, you see these regional buildings reflecting that character. And this is where our group stayed, and that's the inside. You could just see how vast it is. This is just the upstairs portion, just one area of the upstairs portion. So just one of these buildings easily, and men were on the top floor and women were on the bottom, but just one of these buildings easily 100, 150, 200 people staying. So you get an idea of the proportions of just how many people were coming and revering Webu Sayadaw. one monk or one pilgrim at night. This is the building where Sayagyi U Ba Khin and U Kole resided during their monkhood. They lived in, I believe it was in the front room on the right, on our right. We used it, when we were there, we used it for less noble purposes. We used it for our evening snack after meditation when we came together. From there, we continue to walk. If you see the building behind us, this again is the building where U Ba Khin and U Kole stayed. And if we continue to walk, we reach these trees. And after Sayagyi U Ba Khin, after his hair was shaved by Webu Sayadaw took his hair and he put it in the middle tree. There are 3 trees in a row. The tree on the left, he put it in the ground, in the soil of that tree, predicting that Sayagyi U Ba Khin was going to play a major role in the spreading of the Dhamma. And so this is an important tree on the campus. And so much in this village has extraordinary meaning like this. This is a hall where basically one-day visitors would come. So again, we have this meditation campus that's serving all these needs. It's serving the needs of the monastics, of the lays, of the people who are there for 10 days, for 3 months, for 5 years, and for one day. Sometimes Burmese families would just come for one day to hear a discourse, to give some dana, to pay their respects, to get some meditation instruction, and then that's all the time they had and they would leave. So the campus was separated in different ways according to the needs of the people that were coming. So this is a hall that served food for the people that were just there a short time so that they didn't go and eat at the place where people that were there longer on the campus. They wouldn't intermix with them, so they would be kept separate. It's another to me, just another sign of the vast scale of what was happening here. This is where Webu Sayadaw would eat his meals. And again, if you take a good look at this picture, and I'm going to go to a picture from 50 years ago, and you'll see the similarities. You'll see same table, same bricks, same window frames. So this is where Webu Sayadaw would eat his meals. Here's another picture of the modern day site. And if you follow that red arrow, then we go to another underground layer of meditation cells. And those are the steps leading down to those cells. This is the place where Webu Sayadaw was known every evening to go and to teach the invisible beings. If some of you may have heard this story before, it's something that everyone in Ingynbin knows. When I go there, it's something that every villager points out. It was just known as common lore. You can take it as you want, but it's part of their belief that he would go to this platform and he would, as part of his daily routine, every evening at about 9 o'clock, he would go and teach Dhamma to all the invisible beings that would come. When it was explained to me, the villagers took me there and they made a real point of showing me that there's no ladders anywhere. And we got closer and they showed me the height. And they just kept saying, there's no ladders. You see, there's no ladders. And I didn't understand what his point was. I said, well, what do you mean there's no ladders? And I finally said, okay, I'd take the bait. So how did Webu Sayadaw get up there? And they kind of looked at me with a twinkle in their eye, and that's the point. So I didn't need to ask any further. This is a great picture of the field in front of where Webu Sayadaw would go to this platform, and where, according to local belief, the invisible beings would gather and listen to his Dhamma. Some of our pilgrims were very inspired by this story and endeavored to go there at night and meditate, and came back with very interesting experiences. This is next to the site where he taught the invisible beings. This is where they would hold festivals. Again, we're just seeing the scale of this place. We're seeing how many purposes it served, how big it was, how many people were in single buildings. So whenever there were important Buddhist ceremonies, local festivals or whatever, they were often held in this building here, this 2-story building. So you can imagine 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you can imagine the full moon days, or the Festival of Lights, or Waso, or these other important events from the Buddha's lifetime, and hundreds of families milling around here, reflecting on the event, maybe after they listen to a discourse in the Dhamma Hall, and then they wander around this area. These are little kutis where the monks would stay. So you see some of the one-day visitors would share a hall with 200 people sleeping, and then a more serious, committed monk or or none might have a kuti by themselves or just with a couple other people. You remember this story about the car? We have a couple pictures of the car from Clarissa Vandertramp. And there's the car a few years ago. So we remember Anicca. The last time I was at Ingynbin, I do not see any sign of the car whatsoever. Not even the old seats. I think it is completely gone. So these might be the last images known of the car's remains. Of course, many trees means lots of sweeping, and only a few monks living there means lots of leaves and lots of sweeping, which, as we learned yesterday, was also an activity Webu would do. This is another block of cells. It's in pretty poor shape now, but it was another area where intensive meditation would happen. This was our group when we visited the Pati Pati side, and that was a memory of our visit there that we gave the Sayadaw as a present. And now we go to the Pariyati side. This is where Umandala is from. This is where he's the senior monk. It's the Eastern Monastery, also known as Kannanu Monastery, or the old Webu Sayadaw Monastery. If you remember, Webu Sayadaw this monastery had been in existence over 100 years from when Webu Sayadaw was a novice there, where he was born. After he came back to live in Ingynbin, if you remember his biography, he decided, well, if I'm coming back to Ingynbin, I'm going to teach Dhamma, I'm going to practice meditation, and he started to establish the Pati Pati site. While he established the Pati Pati site, the Pariyati site continued as it had always done for generations. When the Sayadaw there, who was also Webu Sayadaw as a novice, when he passed away, Webu Sayadaw was now in charge of 2 monasteries. So this is sometimes confusing for us to understand their relationship, but it's, if you can remember, one monastery is the one that has always existed, that he came from, that he was now in charge of, and the other one was the one he had established. Now both known as Webu Sayadaw monasteries and monasteries in his lineage. This is passing through the front gate of the Pariyati Monastery. And we enter the main Dhamma Hall. And that's a picture of what the central Dhamma Hall looks like. And we go to the next slide, and here's how an artist for our project rendered an artistic illustration of this Dhamma Hall at Ingynbin. If you look carefully in the small left-hand corner, you see a monk talking to 2 foreigners, and if we get closer, you might recognize who that monk is. That monk is Umandala. We asked our artist to draw a likeness of Umandala. Umandala is someone that we all should be extremely grateful for. Single-handedly, with foresight for decades, he has welcomed foreigners to come and pay their respects to Webu Sayadaw, and we wanted to express our gratitude towards the kindness that he's shown by keeping the door to Ingynbin always open. This is a site that if you come to Ingynbin, you're very likely to see Umandala talking to 2 foreigners and asking what they need and how their meditation's going and if their food's okay. So we wanted to show this in our art. And there's Umandala in his native home and our group at Ingynbin. An idea of our group schedule when we were there. Some sitting and touring. And this is a picture of our group with Umandala, and this is in the upstairs of the great Dhamma Hall. If you notice, actually I wanted to point this out, if you notice you might notice we're all wearing very similar clothing. This wasn't something that was mandated, it wasn't something someone had to wear, but Burmese people, when they go on pilgrimage, when they practice meditation intensively, if they're lay, they often wear brown and white clothes, and they wear a sash sometimes with their group or with a quote from the Buddha or the monastery they're affiliated with. So we gave our group these clothings, and we gave them the option if they wanted to wear it or not, and it was totally their choice. One pilgrim, Corey Goldberg, who you might know, commented on the experience of wearing this. He said, although I understood intellectually the value of everyone in the group wearing the same thing as a marker of breaking down distinction and creating a group bond, for some reason I didn't really feel comfortable with the standardized attire. Nevertheless, I wore it and thought to myself, this is a great ego-destroying practice. As soon as we got off the bus, I noticed how everyone's eyes turned on us. while the handful of foreign tourists at the site looked at us as if we were more alien than the culture that they were visiting. The Burmese were all smiles, feeling proud that a group of foreign yogis came to their country to practice the Dhamma and wear specialized local attire to boot. So I wanted to share that quote because some of you might have been a little strange. Well, why are they wearing the same thing? What's that about? And that's the story behind it. Another view of the upstairs of the Dhamma Hall. And Umandala at the front talking to our group. As you can see, he takes care of his guests well. He's been interested in the Australian food you're serving him, and he often returns the favor of the yogis who stay with him, enjoying a cup of tea. And if you notice the red arrow pointing to the shrine room, this is the main shrine room of the upstairs Dhamma Hall at Ingynbin. We'll be taking a closer look at some of the important items that are in there in a moment. One of the entrances of the monastery. Now, this is an important place. This is where Webu Sayadaw was ordained as a novice. Another nice place to pay respects and to meditate. This was the ordination hall that dates back to the 18th century that we mentioned. If you notice the red arrows going on both sides, if you go behind where he was ordained, you go into a kind of cavernous room where novices are still living. This was where Webu Sayadaw, as a novice, used to live and study himself. So full of this living history. Some of these sites are very old. There's some stupas that date back a couple centuries, and some of the stupas have relics of one of, I think, Webu Sayadaw's teacher, or I think it was his teacher's teacher. His relics are enshrined. This, I was told, is a Bodhi tree that Webu Sayadaw himself personally planted and watered that now has grown. They have a nice little quirk about Ingynbin, is they have a natural hot spring shower there. The food preparation. I gave Umandala a tour of your kitchen at this Vipassana center, and he was very interested. It was, as you see, it was very different from where he's from. The eating facilities. And one of the most important things that you heard about yesterday were the relics that are at Ingynbin of the Buddha. And you heard about, from Patrick yesterday, about how those relics were given. There were relics of the Buddha that were given by the president of Sri Lanka directly to Webu Sayadaw, and how they're the most prized item at the monastery. And Webu Sayadaw himself would carry those with him everywhere he went. These are not the Buddha relics. I don't remember which relics these are. I'll have to ask. For those of you who might be confused about relics, the idea is that when the body of an arahant is cremated, there's a purity within the body or within the mind that crystallizes, and some take this as a view of full enlightenment. So in Burma, the relics of enlightened people are seen as something very precious to many Burmese living there. And as we'll see here, these are the Buddha relics that were described yesterday that were received from the president of Sri Lanka. I want to show you a little of how they're kept and stored, just how protected and valued they are. So this is our first picture in a sequence of pictures. You see the first layer of cloth. There's the next layer of cloth. And then they began to take it out. So you could see then there's a golden box covered with gold leaf, and then these are the relics, and that's a close-up of them. That's the Sayadaw, the head Sayadaw U Pinyawunta at the Pariyati side. And when these relics are brought out to foreigners, it's an opportunity for foreigners to be able to pay respects to them, to meditate with them in their presence. So this is first when they're brought out, relics are always paid respects to. And then often, if one wants, you have the opportunity of being able to meditate with relics being held over your head. This is inside the shrine room of the Dhamma Hall, the upper Dhamma Hall at the Pariyati side that I had the red arrow saying remember because we're coming back here. And these are the relics of Webu Sayadaw that are in here in this glass pagoda. So meditators also got a chance to enter this shrine room and to pay respects and to meditate in front of these relics. And sometimes for important ceremonies, they have a procession of the relics. So the monks are carrying the relics around the monastery in this photo. There's also a monastic school, and it's here where they might learn Pali, they might learn about Dhamma, some scriptures, recitation, maybe some Anapana meditation. Umandala is always looking for foreign volunteers to come and help out, so this might be your ticket there. When our group visited, we had a sanghadana. We gave items to all of the monks and nuns there. That's what you're seeing the photos of. This is a wonderful quote I wanted to get to. This really expresses so beautifully in taking you on this virtual tour of Ingynbin. I've tried to show you the sights, the sounds, the feelings, and this quote really encapsulates to me what it's like to be there as a meditator. And Linda Chang has said, despite the neglect, there's still remarkable beauty. The flowering tree that serves as a refuge for the butterflies, the lone bell on the old umbrella top that still chimes in the wind, the chanting that carries across the arid, dusty landscape, the devotion of a poor village. The rate at which things change here is remarkable. Within the span of a few minutes, one can feel nausea, malaise, dizziness, arise and completely resolve. When you peel back the desolate and dusty facade, the strength in Ingynbin is real and raw, not for the faint of heart, but so incredibly instructive. The mosquitoes, snakes, bats, dust, and loudspeakers that blare all night long are no match for the strength of vibrations that remain in this very special place. If anything, they remind of the fragility of existence. Keep working, pilgrim, keep working. And lastly, I'll try to, I was a little overambitious in my presentation, so we'll end here. This is very special. I want to make sure to get in. While we were in Ingynbin on our pilgrimage, one pilgrim, a New Zealander, Russell, decided to ordain. And so we had a very special, he was a monk for 10 days. He stayed by himself after our group left, and he sat his own 10-day self-course. And our group was able to watch the process by which a man becomes a monk in Ingynbin, a very special place with Umandala helping out. So the process first begins by having his hair shaven into a white towel as he reflects upon the characteristics of the body. Uaga, the Dutch monk, is kindly shaving him as everyone looks on, instructing him in the protocol. The event drew a lot of attention for a small town. Everyone showed up to watch it, and it's a very auspicious event. To seeing someone renounce in this way is something that brings a lot of joy to many people. So everyone turned up to watch. After his head was shaven, he received his robes and bowls from Umandala. He then had to try the new robes on. He then had to go through some formalities. And at this point, he's just a novice. And after becoming a novice, he then became a full bhikkhu in the ordination hall. And upon stepping out, our group paid respects to him formally as you would to any new bhikkhu. And that was his ordination. The very next morning, he went on an alms round in Ingynbin. We talked about Webu Sayadaw's alms rounds, and here's the alms round of Russell. I don't remember his new bhikkhu name. I should be calling him by that. His bhikkhu name during these 10 days. Usasana. Uaga led him on an alms round. This is a very funny picture because you might know John Givett, who the layperson who's an American who accompanied their alms round and served as an attendant. Inexplicably, this woman approached him and gave him alms as if he was a monk, and he had no choice but to accept. What's so funny about this story is that John would become a monk about a month later. So she might have known something that he did it. He then went on to become a monk for about 3 months. But he accompanied their alms round. Then after they got back, they split up their food and shared with the monastery. And just last picture, and then we'll stop. While we were there, there was a funeral in Ingynbin, and it gave us a chance to see how death is understood in such a Dhammic community. it was seen as an opportunity for everyone in the community to reflect upon the body and the dissolution. What happened was the monks gave a Dhamma talk to the people. The people all came. They gave Dhamma. They gave Dana to the monks. The monks gave Dhamma talks back to them, and they used this as an occasion for reflecting about the impermanence of life. The monk you see in the center of the picture, the one that's speaking, it was his mother who had passed away. So he was back in Ingynbin for the ceremony, and this is all the dana in front of him that was given at this time. This is our group in front, and all the monks and nuns and lay people who are there to witness the ceremony. And then the cremation of the body, that's a public cremation that is again serving as a visual lesson, as a reminder of life and the transitoriness. And our group watched as well. And I'll stop there. Most of the important things were covered. So thank you for your time.